Hello and welcome to this session on frequently asked queries reaching Tally Care on Release 5. In this video, we will be covering FAQs on service tax, TDS and excise modules. The first FAQ: how to record an invoice inclusive of service tax in Release 5. So this is a company I have created called ABC Services, which is providing services. Now let us pass a transaction where they want to have inclusive of service tax. So we'll go to accounting vouchers, sales, now customer, F12, click F12, and this is the option. Just like VAT, similar option has been given for service tax, that is, allow entry of amount inclusive of tax for service ledger. Make it yes. Now select your service ledger, enter the amount. Say my amount inclusive of service tax is 1140. You can see that Tally has automatically bifurcated what is your assessable value, and when you select your service tax ledger, the duty of 14%, which I have configured already, gets calculated automatically. So this way, in the voucher, if your configurations are done, only click F12 and allow entry of amount inclusive of service tax, make it yes, and enter the amount that is inclusive of service tax. That is all you need to do to have an inclusive of service tax invoice. Next FAQ: how to pass transaction for reversal of input credit of service tax on interstate purchases. So this is a scenario which will be applicable if the input credit of service tax on purchase is utilized but no bill has been received from the supplier and it has passed 3 months. So your input credit you have utilized, but you have not received the bill from your supplier even though 3 months have passed. Then the rule states that the input credit of service tax which you had utilized has to be reversed. So how do you do it? Now for this kind of an adjustment, you need to pass a stat adjustment entry. So we'll do this from the service tax triangulation report. So we'll go to display, statutory reports, service tax reports, form ST3 and stat adjustment. Here you have to select the flag as reversal of ineligible credit. This is your adjustment class. So once you select this, now you can debit your expense, your service ledger, and credit your service tax, input service tax ledger for the amount of input credit that you want to reverse. So this is how you will pass the transaction for reversal of input credit. So when your input credit which you have utilized and you want to reverse it, you can pass this transaction using this flag and it will affect your accounts. The third FAQ: can I save revised TDS returns in Release 5? So this is, we have started with TDS. So the question is whether revised TDS return can be saved. So to save revised returns, TDS returns in Tally, you have to go to the triangulation report of TDS. So let's go there, display, statutory reports, TDS reports, form 26Q. Now this is a return. I have one transaction, and if I want to save this return, a revised return, then first of all I have to save the original return. So you save the return. It will ask me whether I want to save the return. Once the return is saved, if I want to file a revised return, so whatever change is required, I can make the change in the transaction. So once I go to my triangulation report, I will see that the return values might have been changed, and it will say press F5 to recompute. Once I recompute it, you can see the option save as revised has become highlighted. So when I click this, Tally will ask me whether I want to save the revised return. Once I say yes, you can see that my revised return has got saved. When I go to return transaction book, this is the revised return that has got saved, and you can now file your return using this revised return. So yes, from Tally release 5, you can save your revised returns, revised TDS returns by going to TDS reports and saving the return. And if you find any changes or any modification that has to be done in the saved return, you can make the necessary modification, recompute the values, and save it as a revised return. So this is how you save your revised TDS returns. How to deduct TDS at 1% or 2% while making payment to transporters. So this is an amendment in the Income Tax Act which states that a TDS deduction of 1% is applicable for individuals and HUF owning more than 10 goods carriage, and the same is of 2% when it is some other type of payee, that is other than individuals and HUF. And for those who own less than 10 goods carriage, no TDS is applicable except for those transporters who do not have a PAN. So if you do not have a valid PAN, then the TDS of 20% will be applicable for all parties. So for this, first of all, what we'll do is we will configure this rate of 1% or 2%, whichever is applicable. For that, you will go to Accounts Info, Statutory Info, select the nature of payment, that is alter it, and ensure that in F12 allow rate details for others. This is enabled. This is so that you can give the rates that are applicable for individual or HUF and others. So you can specify the rate of 1% for individual HUF and 2% for others. Now depending on the type of payee for which you are making the transaction, you can deduct the TDS. So we will see one scenario where a transporter who is not an individual or an HUF, and there is a TDS of 2% which is applicable. So how do you record such a transaction? We'll go to accounting vouchers, we'll pass a journal. So the expense, that is transport expense, say 50,000. So transporter 49,000. And your TDS ledger. So this is one scenario where TDS of 2% was applicable. Let us see the other scenario where a transporter who owns less than 10 goods carriages. So in this case, no TDS is applicable. How do we pass the transaction? Again, journal, say 30,000, and you will not deduct TDS. So this is how you will pass a transaction where you do not deduct TDS because the payee owns less than 10 goods. So I hope this aspect of TDS where you deduct 1% or 2% while making payment to transporters, I hope it is clear. We have started with excise FAQs. Now first one is where to provide range, division and commissionerate details of the company. So in Tally, now how to provide range, division and commissionerate details. So for this you have to go to F11, F3, enable excise, set or alter excise details, Click F12 here, enable jurisdiction details. Make it yes and go to set or alter jurisdiction details, make it yes, and this is where you can specify your range, division and commissionerate details. Next, how to get the list of purchase references while making a dealer excise sale. So this is relating to dealer excise, how to get the list of purchase references. Now I'll pass an excise sale. So you can see that the purchase references, the excise purchase references are not showing here for passing on the duty. So what Tally does is that from release 5, Tally automatically and by default it adjusts the bill allocation. But if you want to see which is the purchase which is being adjusted, you can click F12. Use defaults for excise bill allocations. This is set as yes, make it no. So you are not going to use the default, you want to select the bill. So now you can see that the list of purchases, like it used to show in release 4.9, the list of purchases shows. You can select the relevant purchase and pass on the duty. Next, while taking print of excise dealer's sales invoice, the duty value passed on is doubling. How to resolve this? So this issue, that is the duty value being doubled, this was an issue in release 5 and it has been resolved in release 5.1. So once you install release 5.1, this issue won't be occurring. Next, in excise invoice print, tariff classification details are not appearing. Why? So this again, just like VAT, you have to ensure that the tariff, first of all, that the tariff details are defined in the item. So let us see in Tally. So set or alter excise details. Here you will define your tariff details. So ensure that it is defined in the item. Next step is to check whether you have defined any tariff details in the sales or purchase ledgers. So what happens is that if you have defined tariff details which are different from what is defined in the stock item, whatever is defined in your sales or purchase ledger, that will be taken into consideration. So either you do not define the tariff details in the sales or purchase ledgers, or you define exact details as what is matching with the stock item. So these are the troubleshooting points. First of all, ensure that tariff is defined in the stock item and ensure that there is no mismatch between the tariff details in stock item and your sales or purchase ledgers. We hope this video was informative and helped you to gain a better understanding of service tax, TDS and excise modules in Release 5. Thank you.